I just got back from 7 fantastic days in Vegas. I'm not gonna lie though, first 5 days were brutal. 2 bullets in the $300 Gladiator and 2 bullets in the $500 Summer Saver, and nothing to show for it.
It's you. Yep. That's not good. All right.
Now on day 5, I entered a $200 WSOP Nightly Tournament and managed to finish 22nd out of 288 runners for a nice little $420 cash. It was also my son Ben's first cash in a live tournament, and he's now the proud owner of a Hendon Mob profile. And then, on the last night in Vegas, this old man coffee took it to the next level. I went deep in the Wynn $200 Daily Tournament. Spoiler alert, I won the whole damn thing. It wasn't perfect poker. There were some tough decisions, few mistakes, some well-timed aggression, and of course a little bit of luck. But after battling through the field, I was the last player standing and walked away with $6,939. As Jeff Boski would say, no chop, no swap. In this video, I'm going to tell you the story of this amazing day and break down the 5 key hands in my decision-making process that helped turn an ordinary tournament into my biggest poker win yet. And I'm going to let my son Ben take the honors of rolling the intro.
Oh man, Chris! Number 1, roll intro!
It's a little before 10 a.m. on my last full day in Vegas, and my son has some work calls, so I hole up in the Starbucks in the Link Promenade and work on some video editing. After about 2 hours, I decide to pack up and make my way over to Encore. It's a little before 1 p.m., and I come in just before the end of level 2 with a 25K starting stack, a dream, and blinds of 100, 200, 200. The very first hand I look at is 2 red queens in middle position, and I raise to 500. It folds around to the button, and he min raises to 1,000. It's an odd bet size, and honestly, I'm not sure how to respond. I decide to 4-bet him to 3,500, and he insta-folds. Not sure what to think of his betting line, but things start out on the right foot. I win a few more small pots, and then in level 3, with blinds at 200, 300, 300, and my stack at 31K, I have my first consequential hand. I'm in the big blind with Ace of Hearts, King of Clubs, and there's a limp from early position and a raise to 1,500 from the button. I decide to 3-bet to 4,500. I'd rather take this down now than to miss the flop and play out of position. But the original limper folds and the button calls, and the pot is now 9,800. The flop comes 9 of diamonds, 7 of hearts, 2 of diamonds. Other than a backdoor flush draw, I don't have much, and honestly, this isn't going to really hit either of our ranges. I decide to check with the intention of calling any reasonable sized bet. He throws out a small bet of 2,000, and I make the call, and the pot is ballooned up to 13,800. The turn comes another diamond, and I have to make a decision on how to proceed. I don't think this person is thrilled with his hand, and honestly, I feel like the diamond likely scared him, so I decide I'm going to represent diamonds and throw out a bet. But I have to decide how much. I have 24,500 in my stack. All in seems like too much. A 50% pot bet is 7K, and that would leave me with about 18K back if he calls. The pot will be about 28K, so it will be less than ideal, as I won't have a pot-sized bet if I'm going to double-barrel this semi-bluff. I decide to go 5K and immediately regret it because he insta-calls. Looking at GTO Wizard, it likes a check in that situation almost 100% of the time, and a 50% bet for the rest of the times. Well, the river makes things a lot easier when the Jack of Diamonds hits. I continue with my story and I go all in. He goes into the tank, and after about a minute, he calls with Queen of Hearts and the Queen of Diamonds. What a great river card. He's left with crumbs, and I now have 62K, over 200 big blinds. Skip ahead 2 levels to level 5 in my next interesting hand. Blinds are 300, 600, 600, and I'm in the cutoff with pocket 4s and a 59K stack. Guy in under the gun +1 raises to 1,500. I call, and the button who has a similar stack to mine calls as well. I get the dream flop of 4 of clubs, Queen of Hearts, King of Hearts. The original raiser oddly checks, and not expecting that, I'm not sure what to do. These are the situations where I really have to go back to what I've learned about GTO. This is a very connected board, and even though I flopped a set, there's a high likelihood that at least one of the two villains improved. I decide to bet half pot. The button calls and the original raiser folds. The turn is a 9 of hearts. I'm not loving this. Jack 10 just got there, and so did any 2 hearts. There's always a chance that he has a bigger set, but if I bet, will he call with a pair of queens or a pair of kings? I decide to take the conservative route and check. The button thinks for quite a long time and finally decides on going all in. My first instinct is to fold, but I've told myself that I need to think about every situation and make sure that the villain's story makes sense. If he hit the flush, then why is he going all in? Wouldn't it make more sense to milk me for more money? Maybe he's doing what I did earlier and is semi-bluffing with 1 heart in his hand and trying to get me to fold. Somehow, I talked myself into a call. He turns over ace 8 of hearts, and a meaningless river sends me to the rail. Or does it? I start to put my backpack on, and the dealer says, "Don't go anywhere, I think you still have chips." Sure enough, I have $600 in chips. What happens next is unbelievable. I go all in, blind, not looking at my cards for 3 hands in a row. There's still plenty of time to rebuy, and I just want to get rid of my chips so I can contribute another $200 to the prize pool. But I win each and every hand, and because of multiple callers in each hand, I build my chip stack back to starting stack. We joke at the table that somehow I managed to get a free rebuy. The whole table is laughing with each all in, and one player is talking about me having alligator blood. Although I'm back to starting stack, we're heading to level 6, and the blinds will be 400, 800, 800, leaving me with just about 30 bigs, so I need to make something happen shortly. Over the next several levels, I start getting strong starting hands, and dry flops mean that I'm winning several uncontested pots. So moving ahead to level 12, we find my next interesting hand. I haven't moved from my table, but rebuys ended in the last level, folks are getting knocked out, and new players are moving to my table. Fortunately, even though players are coming and going, I'm consistently the chip leader at the table with about 350,000. Now that we're approaching the bubble, I start to play a lot more hands and attempt to abuse the players who are trying to just make it to the money. There was one player with a chip stack a little lower than mine, so I was consciously avoiding him. The good news is that he was definitely a recreational player, rarely entering pots, and had been drinking quite a bit. He seemed pretty content with his above average stack. More on him shortly. So in level 12, with my chip stack at 350k and the blinds at 3k, 6k, 6k, I look down at 6 of spades, 8 of spades, and the hijack. As I mentioned, I'm opening with a wide range trying to pick up uncontested pots, so I raise to 12k. In this instance, I get called by the button and the big blind. I have both of them covered by a good bit, and I'm sure that most everyone is irritated with my bullying attitude. Well, the miracle flop comes 5 of hearts, 7 of clubs, 9 of hearts. The big blind checks, and I c-bet 25% just like I would with my entire range. The button, with about 100k in his stack, goes all in, and the big blind gets out of the way. Obviously, I call, flip my cards over immediately, and he's visibly aggravated and says a few curse words and proceeds to turn over his pocket jacks. The turn gives him a sweat when a jack hits, but the river is clean and I add a significant amount of chips to my stack. In level 13, we burst the bubble after several hand-for-hand situations.
Ladies and gentlemen, we did lose a player. Congratulations, your main plays are in the money.
The good news is that I have 363 locked up, but the bad news is that I made a reservation for me and my son Ben at Peter Luger Steakhouse for 7:30. He'd made his way over to Encore, and I told him to go find something to eat and to open a bar tab if he wanted some cocktails while he railed me. Okay, moving on to the next big hand. Remember the guy next to me who'd been drinking? His stack has taken a hit, but he's still doing okay. His wife visits the table, and he mentions to her that he needs to slow down the drinking and see if he can go deep. They talk a little bit about the comps that they get at the Wynn, and it's obvious that he's more of a gambler than a poker player. We're in level 15, and my stack has grown to about 500k, and the blinds are 6k, 12k, 12k. It folds around to me, and I look down at pocket aces and raise to 24k. Our inexperienced friend next to me in the big blind is pretty fed up as I've been raising quite a bit, so he decides he's going to take a stand and call. The flop comes 3, 3, 5, rainbow. I continuation bet 20k, and he calls, building the pot to 100k. I'm putting him on a middling pocket pair, maybe 7s through jacks. A 6 comes on the river, putting straight possibilities out there, but but I don't see him calling pre-flop with any cards that would have made a straight. He could have a set of 5s or 6s perhaps, but I decide that I need to bet for value and bet 50% of the pot. He doesn't waste much time before going all in for the rest of his stack, which is about 150K. So now I have to decide, A, could he have a worse hand? B, could he be bluffing? And C, am I somewhat pot committed? So let's start with what I have to call. I just bet 50K, so I have to call another 100K to win a 400K pot. So my pot odds are about 25%. Now, could he have a worse hand? I think he could definitely have a smaller pocket pair, but other than that, I'm not sure I'm beating anything else he would go all in with. He might have a 3 in his hand for trips, but what 3s would he have? Maybe pocket 3s, but it seems very unlikely that he flopped quads. How about a bluff? He's definitely not an experienced player, so I guess he could have a random bluff. Maybe he has ace-king, ace-queen, or ace-jack, and based on the board, maybe he thinks he's ahead. But I minimize the likelihood that he's bluffing. So other than sets, I can't figure out what's beating me, so I reluctantly make the call. Well, he turns over king 3 offsuit for trips, and I lose a big pot at the wrong time. What are your thoughts? Is that a fold? Would you have called? Let me know in the comments. In level 15, I have another scenario where I looked it up in GTO Wizard to see if it was the right play. I've won back much of the money that I lost on the pocket aces hand, and with blinds at 5K, 10K, 10K, I look down at 8 of spades, 8 of diamonds. Under the gun opens to 20K, and I raise to 60K, and he goes all in for about 175,000. I decide to fold only because I feel like I'm in a marginal spot, and not being sure what to do, folding seems to be the safe choice. Looking at GTO Wizard, my mistake was raising with the pocket 8s. That's 100% a call. But like I've said in many of my episodes, GTO isn't meant to be robotic. It's meant to give you a baseline for how to play and then adjust based on the dynamics of the game and the players. In this case, there were several short stacks at the table who were just looking to ladder up to the next pay level, and I was trying to be aggressive. So in this instance, the raise with 8s was probably bad, but I think the fold made sense. It doesn't take too long before we consolidate to the final table, and it's literally the first time I've moved from the seat I sat down in many hours ago, and where, if you recall, I had a measly 6 $100 chips in front of me. When we are dealing the first hand at the final table, Ben yells, "Hey, old man Chris!" And I look up. He's standing next to Dan Jungleman Cates, who, for those who don't know, is a high-stakes poker pro. Jungleman shoots me 2 thumbs up. Ben had asked him to do pistols, and Jungleman said, "Can't I just give him a thumbs up?" The kid 2 seats to my right, we'll learn more about him shortly, sees Jungleman and asks for a selfie. The tournament director seems peeved by the slowdown in the action because now the kid wants him to record a video for his buddy. We get past the commotion and settle into the final table. It's now after 11 o'clock at night. We've been playing for over 11 hours, and we're now 4-handed at the final table. Here are the 4 players that are left. First is Poker Pro. He's mid to late 30s, plays a very solid game, is wearing reflective glasses, and is pretty robotic in his actions. We've traded chips back and forth on 2 or 3 occasions. Second is Hazel. That's not her name, but that was the name of my grandma, and she reminded me of her. She's also a very solid poker player. Third is Nomad. He's in his early 20s and has a huge backpack on the ground next to him, and is the one who seemed more interested in getting selfies from Jungleman than playing poker. This kid literally looks like he just got off the Appalachian Trail and plopped himself down at a poker table. Once we are 4-handed, Hazel asks if anyone is interested in a chop. I have more chips than anyone else, and Hazel has the fewest. Poker Pro says, "No, not yet, let's play." And I pick up on the fact that he sees Hazel's short stack and will consider it once she is knocked out. Nomad chimes in and says, "There's 16,500 in the prize pool. Let's give old man Chris 4,500 and everyone else gets 4,000. I say, I'll only chop if we use the independent chip model approach. That's a chop where you get a proportion of the prize pool based on the percentage of chips that you have in your stack. Poker Pro says once again, "No, not yet, let's play." The irony of this is that he only lasts about 20 more minutes, and Hazel is the one who takes the last of his chips. Hazel asks again if we're interested in a chop, and at this point, Nomad has built his stack just shy of mine. Nomad says he's interested, and the tournament director begins to check what the payouts would be. But then Nomad realizes that his stack is just a little shorter than mine and says, "I'll only agree to a chop if I get first place designation because I have a prop bet with some friends." Ben lets me know, in no uncertain terms, that first place is too valuable to me now that I have a YouTube channel and tells me not to agree to that. I tell the tournament director I want to play on. Hazel seems exasperated and exhausted, and within a couple of hands, she's given her remaining chips to me. That brings us to the final consequential hand, number 5, the first hand after Hazel's elimination, and the last hand of the tournament. In level 21, with blinds at 40K, 80K, 80K, I'm in the big blind with Queen of Diamonds, 7 of Hearts. At this point, I have 3.1 million chips, and Nomad has 1.1 million. Nomad thinks for a minute and completes, and I check my option. The flop comes 9 of clubs, 6 of clubs, Queen of Spades. I lead for 100K, and Nomad wastes no time and goes all in. Pretty sure this is an automatic call, as he could have a lot of worse queens or a flush draw. I'm losing to a set, but I suspect he would have raised pre-flop with a set, so I call. He turns over ace of clubs, king of spades, and although I'm ahead, I'm pretty vulnerable. He has 2 overs and a backdoor flush draw. I'll be damned if the ace of spades doesn't land on the turn, and I start realizing that we'll have comparable stacks after this hand. But then, as the dealer prepares to deal the river card, Ben shouts, very loudly I might add, 7 ball! And as if summoned from the poker gods, the 7 of club hits the felt, and I've now won almost $7,000 in the Wynn Daily Tournament. Let me just say that it was a whirlwind from that point. I'm mentally and physically exhausted, but on a pretty big high from winning this tournament. Ben is actually more excited than I am.
How do we feel, old man Chris?
It wasn't a wasted trip after all.
10 out of 10?
10 out of 10. Highly recommend. All right, I can't thank him enough for being on the rail for the better part of 4 hours. Remember I told him to open a bar tab? Well, that thing ate into my profits a pretty good bit, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I was so thankful to share the excitement with him.
Old man Chris! Number 1, roll intro!
I'm going to close this episode by saying that GTO is not easy. It's not fun. Sometimes it makes no sense at all. But you know what? My poker education journey has advanced considerably since embracing these concepts. And since I started this channel, I've taken it to a whole new level. Making these videos forces me to study, to stay current, to continue to evolve, to fix leaks, and most importantly, to influence other people's journey as well. Thank you to everyone who watches Crazy Old Man Coffee. And please, please, please like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one.